It is officially June. We are heading into the tail end of the second quarter of the year. Do you know if your business is on track? Not like a general feel or vibe, an actual clear answer. And if the honest answer is you're not really sure, well, then this episode is your 30-minute fix for that. We're doing a halftime check-in today. 5 questions, 1 honest look at your numbers, and 1 smart adjustment to carry into the second half of the year. That's it. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Simplifying Small Business from the Growth Table. And like I said, we are into June, and I want to tell you up front, today's episode is interactive. I'm going to guide you through 5 questions, and I really want you to grab something to write with before we go any further. Pause the episode right now, get a pen, a piece of paper, open a notes app, something, whatever works for you. But I want you to have something to write on because the value of this episode lives entirely in your answers, not in just listening to the questions. So pause now. All right, got something? Ready to go? All right, like I said, we are heading into the end of Q2. For most business owners running a calendar year business, that means that you are roughly 5 months in and you have a lot of real data behind you and you have a summer season ahead of you, which for many businesses is either a surge or a slowdown. And knowing which one is coming for your business matters. And you have about 7 months left in the year to work with. This is a genuinely useful moment to stop and look at the scoreboard, just to get a clear, honest picture of where you actually stand so that the decisions that you make from here on out are based on real information, not assumptions about where your business stands. That's the whole point of a mid-year check-in. And I promise you, it takes less time than you think when you have the right questions to ask. A regular business review is not just accountability for its own sake. It's about making sure the effort that you're putting in is pointing in the right direction. Because the thing about running a small business without check-ins is you can work incredibly hard. You can stay incredibly busy, and you can still drift quietly away from the goals that you set for yourself. Just through the accumulation of small, unconsidered decisions that are made in the middle of a very busy day or week or month, right? So a mid-year check-in is how you sort of course correct before drift becomes distance. 30 minutes right now can redirect the entire second half of your year. And why do we do this at the middle of the year, right? Or technically just before the middle of the year? And I want you to understand the why behind this, because I'm a firm believer that if you understand the why, then you're more likely to do it, all right? And the first reason why is because you have enough data at this point in the year to see real patterns, all right? 1 month of data is just a snapshot. 2 months in a row of something happening might be a coincidence. But if you get 5 months of revenue, 5 months of expenses, 5 months of customer behavior and marketing results, now you can find patterns. That is enough information to tell you something real about what is working in your business right now and what is not. This almost mid-year point gives you a meaningful sample size without requiring you to wait until December when your options for adjustment are already passed for the year. The second why is you still have time to make meaningful changes. This is the part that makes a mid-year review so much more valuable than waiting until the end of the year, right? In December, the only thing you can do is reflect and learn, right? In June, you can reflect, you can learn, and you can still do something about it for the remainder of the year. So if your revenue is behind your target, there's still time to adjust your pricing, add an offer, change your marketing tools. If a particular product or service has been a consistent underperformer in your business up until this point, then there is still time to pivot away from that before you continue to sink more time and money into it. The clock's not out, so that matters. And then the third part of this is that summer is coming, and that sometimes changes things for a lot of small businesses. For a significant number of us, particularly those that serve consumers families or just local communities, summer brings a little bit of a shift in rhythm and buying patterns. Some businesses see a surge as people invest in experiences or home project or outdoor activities and gift giving. Some of you are going to see a slowdown because families are traveling or their routines are shifting and that discretionary spending kind of shifts a little bit. So knowing which pattern applies to you and then having a clear plan for that is the difference between getting caught off guard and being ready and feeling stable through it. The mid-year check-in is the moment to look at last summer's data if you have it, and then you can assess what's coming on the horizon and make one or two intentional decisions about how you'll navigate the next few months. That kind of proactive thinking is one of the clearest differentiators between business owners who feel in control and those who are constantly in a reactive mode. So the only prep work that this check-in requires is pulling 4 numbers and making sure that those are in front of you, okay? You don't have to run like a profit and loss statement right now or pull up all of your spreadsheets. You just need to find these numbers and have them written down. So number 1 is your total revenue for January through the end of May, okay? Add up everything that came into your business from sales in those 5 months. Now, if you've been doing your weekly and monthly money checks like we suggest, then you should have these pretty readily available. If you use a payment processor like Square or Stripe or PayPal for all of your transactions, you might need to do it that way if you haven't been keeping up on your books. If you haven't been keeping up on your books, we need to have another conversation. If you invoice, add up your paid invoices, whatever this is, write down your total revenue for the first 5 months of the year. The next number is your total expenses for January through May. And this includes both your direct costs, so your cost of goods sold or whatever costs are tied directly to your sales, and your fixed operating expenses, okay? We covered the difference between those in our first episode in May, I think. If you haven't separated them yet, then just use your total business spending for now, okay? And write that number down. The third number is your revenue target for the full year. This is the number that you set at the beginning of the year or the number that you're working toward. And if you've never set a formal revenue target, then use the annual version of your I'm solid number, right, from your money targets. What does a solid year look like for your business in dollar terms? And write that down. And then the final number that you need is your revenue to date as a percentage of your annual target. So you want to divide your January through May revenue by your annual target and then multiply that by 100. Okay, that percentage tells you how far through your annual revenue goal you are right now at the 5-month mark. So 5 months is 40% of the year. If your business is relatively consistent from month to month, then you would expect to be somewhere around 40% of your annual target by now. If your business is seasonal, then that number is going to look a little different. That is completely expected. The point is just to know where you stand, okay? Do you have your 4 numbers now? Good. Let's get into the questions. So I'm going to walk you through each question, and I'm going to give you some context and some prompts to think through, and then give you a moment to write your answer. Actually, I'm not going to give you a moment. You're going to pause so you can write the answer and then come back, okay? Take as much time as you need. The first question is, what came in? All right, look at your numbers. Compare your revenue to date to where you expected to be at this point in the year, all right? So write your answer to these prompts. My total revenue for January through May was what number? My annual revenue target is what number? I am currently at what percentage of my annual target? And then compared to where I expected to be, I am ahead, on track, or behind. Pick whichever one of those you are, okay? Now, using all of that, write 2 sentences about what you observe. I'm behind on my target, and Q1 was slower than expected. Or I'm ahead of my target, and most of that came from one large project in March. Whatever the facts are for you. So question 2, what went out? Look at your total expenses for the period and ask yourself, are there expenses that surprised me when I added them up? Are there subscriptions, memberships, or tools that I'm paying for that I haven't actually used in the last 5 months? Are there costs that have crept up since the beginning of the year that I haven't consciously decided to increase? So write your answer to these prompts. My total expenses for January through May were, my net position, so my revenue minus my expenses for that period is, and then one expense that I want to look more closely at is. You don't actually have to make any cuts right now, but you just need to see the full picture. So awareness is absolutely the first step here. Okay, then question 3, what made the most money? This is one of the most important questions that you will actually answer in this whole exercise. And it's one that a surprising number of business owners have never actually stopped to answer in writing. Look back at your revenue sources for the first 5 months. Which offer, service, product, or type of customer generated the most revenue, the most profit, the most enjoyment for you? These 3 answers are sometimes the same, and sometimes they are very different. And the gap between them is information worth having. So write your answer to these prompts. My highest revenue offer or product this year so far has been. My highest profit offer or product, the one where you kept the most after costs, has been. The work I have enjoyed most during this year so far has been. And then the overlap between those 3 is what? If your highest revenue item and your highest profit item are the same, and you enjoy doing it the most, well, that is your signal to lean into that item. That is the thing to double down on in the second half of the year. If they're completely different from each other, well, that gap is worth taking a closer look at. The 4th question is, what cost the most time? Revenue and expenses are financial measures, but time is the other currency of your business. And for most early stage owners, it's actually the scarcer one. So let's look at where your time went. Think back over the first 5 months of the year. What activities, clients, or types of work consumed the most of your working hours? Was that time well spent, meaning it produced revenue, it moved a relationship forward, or it built something with lasting value? Or did it feel like time that leaked away without much to show for it? So write your answers to these prompts. The activity that consumed the most of my time this year has been. Looking honestly at that time investment, I would say it was well spent, somewhat useful, or not a good use of my time. The activity I did this year that produced the most return for the time I put in was. And one thing I spent time on that I want to reduce, delegate, or eliminate in the second half of the year is. This question often reveals the yes trap that we talked about last episode, the work that consumed time without producing proportional return. It also often reveals a hidden asset, the thing that you did almost without thinking that turned out to be a genuinely high value. Pay attention to both of those. Question 5, what is the one thing to do differently next quarter? Okay. This is the question that makes all the other questions worth asking, because awareness without making a decision is just information that sits somewhere in a notebook, okay? I want you to leave this check-in with one concrete, specific adjustment to carry into the third quarter. So some examples of what a one thing adjustment might look like. I am going to raise my prices by 15% on all new projects starting July 1st. I'm going to stop offering whatever your low margin service is and redirect that energy toward whatever your high margin service is. I'm going to send one email to my list every week for the next 90 days and track whether it increases inquiries. I'm going to cancel 3 subscriptions I'm not using and redirect that $120 a month towards something that actually moves the needle. Or I'm going to build a simple referral ask into every completed project, starting with my next one. Okay. Notice that every single one of those is specific and it is actionable and it is measurable. It has a clear starting point. It's not vague, right? You're making a decision. It needs to be specific. So write your answer to these prompts. Based on everything I've looked at today, the one thing I'm going to do differently in Q3 is I will start this on, pick a date. I will know it's working when. That last prompt, I will know it's working when, is important. A decision without any kind of a measurement of success is super easy to abandon when things just start to get busy. So give your adjustment a way to be evaluated so you can look back on it in 90 days and actually know whether it moved the needle. So let's talk about how to actually use what you just wrote down, because the check-in is only valuable if it connects to action. So if your numbers look good, like you're on track or you are ahead of target, take a moment to actually acknowledge that. Seriously, running a small business is hard, and being on track at the 5-month mark is genuinely worth recognizing. I mean, we're not going to celebrate it and get super lazy about it for the rest of the season, but, acknowledge it. You earned that. And then ask yourself, what made this work? Can you identify the specific decisions or offers or habits that got you to this point? Because if you can name them, you can protect them and you can build on them in the second half of the year, right? Anything that you understand in terms of success is repeatable. So your one thing adjustment in this scenario might be just about doubling down, doing more of whatever's already working rather than fixing something that's broken. Now, if your numbers are behind target, I want to say something very clearly here. Being behind target at the 5-month mark is not a final verdict, okay? Again, this is a data point. It tells you that something needs attention. It does not tell you that your business is failing. Most small businesses have months that underperform. What matters is what you do with that information. So look at your answers to questions 3 and 4. What made the most money? What consumed the most time? Is there a mismatch between those two things? A place where you're investing significant amount of time in something that isn't generating a proportional return. That mismatch is usually where the gap between your target and your actuals lives. So your one thing adjustment in this scenario is probably just about redirecting, shifting time or attention away from a low return activity toward a much higher return one. And if you're significantly behind target and you're really not sure why, this is the moment that I would encourage you to bring in some support. So a SCORE mentor or your local small business development center can sit down with you for free and help you look at the numbers with fresh eyes. A paid business coach or consultant like myself can do this one time or on a regular interval with you. A second perspective usually reveals things that are hard to see when you're working inside it every single day, right? There is no shame in asking for help, and it really is best to do that before you are in a crisis situation. Now, if you're somewhere in the middle, well, welcome to where most business owners actually are, okay? We're not crushing it, but we're not in trouble. We're just moving, we're building, we're figuring it out, right? That's a legitimate place to be. And it's the place from where, most meaningful growth happens. In the middle, your check-in is about just getting more intentional, right? Picking the one thing that will move the needle the most in the next 90 days and just putting your energy there. We're not trying to fix everything all at once. We're just choosing one direction and we're committing to it long enough to actually see results. Whatever your numbers show, I hope that you are approaching this check-in with the same gentleness that you would offer a friend who was showing you their business, okay? You're building something. You are learning as you go. You are doing this while also living a full life with real demands and real constraints. This context matters, okay? Give yourself the grace of seeing your numbers clearly without letting them define your worth. They're information. That's it, okay? Okay, what did we talk about today? A mid-year check-in gives you enough data to see real patterns and still have enough time to do something about them, okay? That combination is uniquely valuable. That is why we're doing this now. The 4 numbers that you need to pull: your total revenue, your total expenses for the last 5 months, your annual revenue target, and then your revenue to date as a percentage of your annual target. And then those 5 questions: what came in, what went out, what made the most money, what cost the most time, what's the one thing to do differently this next quarter. And then your one thing adjustment, which should be specific and actionable and measurable with a start date and a success measure attached. If you're on track, protect what's working. If you're behind, redirect it. And if you're in the middle somewhere, just get intentional about one direction and then give it 90 days. Numbers are information. They are not a verdict on your worth or your potential. That is your 30-minute mid-year money moment, okay? And you've just done something that the majority of early stage business owners never do, right? You looked at your business clearly without flinching, maybe flinching a little, in the middle of the year when you still have time to do something about what you found. And if you want more mini systems kind of like this that you can implement in your business, plus deep dive workshops that we spend an entire month nurturing you through, come join me in the Growth Table Small Business Collective. No noise, no hustle culture, just a table full of people who are genuinely rooting for each other. Head to growthtablesbc.com or you can find the link in the show notes. Thank you for being here, truly. It is one of the best parts of my week. You've got this. I am cheering you on, and I will see you on Wednesday.